Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Younger Man's Game. My name is Eric Wesch, your host for this podcast, and my apologies for not having an episode up last week. The weather here in southeast Michigan is starting to really turn spring-like, and as we are a mere 4 weeks from the start of my very long hike, about which this show is theoretically based on, I am doing a lot of practice hiking, and I was out in the woods walking around, and so I couldn't record an episode. But this week, we are back, and I welcome all of my wonderful dirtbags to this show, and we are going to talk about self-care and physio as it pertains to both taking care of your body on the trail as well as maintaining your fitness and readiness to hike off trail. This is something that is personally important to me because I recently started physical therapy about 3 weeks ago, and I've already done a physical training episode in my lead up to this hike, and that's really, I should back up. If you haven't ever joined us before, Younger Man's Game is a podcast that's chronicling my preparations for and experience of the Pacific Crest Trail, a nearly 2,700 mile footpath that runs from the U.S.-Mexico border in the south all the way across the border into Canada in the north, crossing some of the most rugged, beautiful, and scenic terrain in the western half of North America. It is an incredibly extensive hike that requires a whole lot of preparation, and if you go back through our previous episodes, you'll see a whole lot of information pertaining to the preparations that have already been made. But what I noticed when I started physical therapy was that something was amiss in my physical training program, because I've got, a few issues that I'm sort of struggling with. There's an issue with my cervical spine and my thoracic spine, which aren't really issues in the sense that they impact my hiking very much, but there is also like a problem in my right foot where like my big toe on that foot doesn't really bend backwards, and I've gone to a few different doctors about it, and finally found a podiatrist who prescribed me some physical therapy. And after going to physical therapy, I realized very quickly, after being assigned an absolutely awesome physical therapist, that I am doing things completely wrong. And I've had to change a whole lot about how I'm approaching movement and training and just general physical care. And I am joined today by a very special guest and a very good friend of mine. I'm joined today by Wade Thoren, and if you'll pardon me while I pull up his bio, which I've managed to not have ready. So let me just go ahead and pull that up real fast before we start talking about it. Boy, this is one of the more professional things I've ever done. It's a really well-oiled machine here. I got to say, it's not, in no way is this a flaming shit show where I just half-ass my way through every single episode. And if you think it's bad now, by the way, I hope y'all like this, because if you think it's bad now, wait till I'm just out in the middle of the woods with no equipment or scripts or any kind of planning. It's going to get weird, and I hope you're ready for that. I hope you're here for all of the improvised oddness that is this show. Let me pull up this man's bio real quick so I can stop rambling. All right, our guest today, Wade Thoren, who's a licensed acupuncturist and licensed massage therapist, uses acupuncture and bodywork in order to deep dive into chronic pain issues. Pain can come from the way we move about the world in our everyday lives, and he aims to ask the right questions about a person's life and work habits, posture, and movement patterns to get an understanding of the bigger picture with the goal of optimizing mobility, strength, and pain reduction. He takes a holistic view of the body in order to address root causes for a preventative approach, and brings his expertise working in physical therapy and chiropractic offices, including physical therapy specialists in Beverly Hills, Dallmeyer and Thomas Physical Therapy, and Century City Hospital, to his practice at Golden Folk. That's a clinic in Los Angeles, I believe. A session with Wade is a collaborative experience where he stays in dialogue with you, asking questions and adjusting techniques in real time to meet your needs. Wade received his graduate degree to traditional Chinese medicine at Dongguk University. I hope I'm saying that right, not totally murdering it. And currently teaches as an adjunct professor of, holy shit, Tui Na, and I'm going to need you to help me out with that one in a minute, Wade, at his alma mater. He studied as a massage therapist in the Connecticut School of Massage Therapy's extensive 2-year program. To further expand his knowledge of the body, he trained with Dr. Mike Luan, DC, in the biofunctional method and traveled abroad to Chiang Mai to study Thai massage. And he's been a friend of mine for many years who has been fixing the various parts of my body that I have been breaking. And I am just very excited to bring him on to the show. Please welcome Wade Thoren.
Hey, Eric.
Hey, man. Welcome. Welcome to Younger Man's Game.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny hearing my own bio read out loud. I'm like, I should read that more often.
Right. Yeah. Like, how often do you talk about yourself in the third person? Unless you're
I really don't.
At a bus stop, chasing the demons who live in your hair follicles.
Is that where they are?
They might be.
Sense.
I mean, it could be. There's a lot of places where the demons live. As someone who used to live right next to Skid Row, I can tell you, they're all over the place down there.
They definitely do occupy some hair follicles.
So
maybe not in myself, but yes,
Wait,
I've met that person.
So I've known you for a long time, and
I was thinking it's like 18 years or something like that.
I think it's longer, right? Like,
is that possible?
Like 2007, I think. Was that when we moved into the same building together? So Wade was my neighbor in Los Angeles.
You're right.
Like, what was that? I mean, how long did we live in that building together? Like almost 10 years, right?
Well, I lived there. Sarah lived there longer. Then I moved in like 2006.
Okay.
And then we were there until 2009 when we moved out. But then after that, we were still hanging out.
And that's, by the way, for everyone who's listening, Sarah is Wade's wife and partner.
My wife.
Been together for a long time. But you met in that building. Like, there was this magical apartment building in Los Angeles where like our whole friend group ended up meeting each other because we were all just like there in our 20s. And I suppose that's how these things happen.
That place was pretty awesome. So Melrose Place, the TV show that we basically, that was
yeah, it's kind of like it was like Melrose Place, but the building was falling apart. So whatever the Melrose
whatever that equivalent
the slums of Melrose. Okay, so I know a lot about you, just because we've known each other for so long. But can you just tell the people who might be listening to this a little bit about your background? Specifically, I'm interested in what drew you to bodywork in the first place, and then how the sort of arc of your professional story led you to Eastern medicine.
Yeah, I mean, I got into it like so many others with my own pain. I had chronic neck pain on my left side, and it would have little flare-ups where I just couldn't turn to the right because of the pain that it would incite on the left. And I think it was 20 years old, and it became because like my posture was just crap back then. So I was very fortunate to have met a chiropractor back in Connecticut who had a staff physical therapist that he would guide through different things, and they would both work on me. And I realized that I was interested in this, but I also ended up in a Kung Fu class that I took because a friend of mine started taking it. And
wow. So Kung Fu?
I mean, I've probably forgotten.
Are you actually Neo from the Matrix? Is that the...
No.
Oh, okay.
No, please don't make me bend backwards like that.
Enough to know how badly that will damage you.
Just hear the discs go. like what was that?
Right.
That was my lumbar spine evacuating.
Sound like popcorn in the microwave. What? Oh, that's not supposed to sound like that. By the way, that's how my body sounds every morning getting out of bed. Is that normal? Yeah, I sound like a pirate ship untying from dock. That's what my body sounds like
great.
when I.
That's fine.
That's normal.
The first 20 steps can be the loudest. The first 20 steps of your day.
I'm not sneaking up on anybody first thing in the morning. It's loud, man. I'm like a party favorite.
Let go of your ninja fantasies. But I mean, speaking of, so my Kung Fu teacher, who was very much a white dude, but he used to travel to China and study with this guy, Master Chen, who was coming to Connecticut from China to teach a weekend seminar. And
very little shot going from China to Connecticut.
Yeah,
pretty much the same.
It was hilarious. He was wearing he had like a just like a hat on and like a Adidas tracksuit. It was hilarious because he was like a Shaolin monk. He's like, oh, I got to be American, but still free flow.
What was his like English situation? Was he have like a translator?
Not great. No, yeah, he had a translator. He was very much.
That's like my first and last calculus professor in college. Holy Toledo! That man, I couldn't. The derivatives. We were studying the derivatives, and I could not. I failed. I failed the class.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that was the end of my
I had something like that. Yeah. When I was studying Chinese medicine, I had a teacher who would say "paswibi." She was Chinese, and I was like, "What the hell is paswibi?"
Pretty sure that's an AI-powered app, but yeah, go on.
So I was writing paswibi. I was like, everybody else seemed to get it. And I'm looking through my books. What the hell is paswibi? She was asking the question, and the pulse will be.
Pulse will be. Oh yeah. Okay. All right.
Paswibi. So
I'm pretty sure that's going to be like a Gen Alpha slang thing in a couple of years. Everyone's going to
it was definitely a joke. It was a joke with Sarah. I was like, that was not very paswibi of you. And I'm going to bring that up today. I haven't said that in years, but I'm going to, like, is that very paswibi of you? Yeah. So there.
Okay. Anyway. So, but getting back to this instructor.
Yeah. So the seminar, I was like, I'm going to learn how to kick some ass Shaolin style. This is going to be great. And the whole weekend was on body work. And at some point, someone did ask, like, hey, this is awesome, but we kind of thought we were going to learn some fighting techniques. And he's like, hurting people is easy, but helping people is really difficult and challenging. And I'm more interested in challenging myself. And I was like, that's cool. I like that because he's right.
Yeah.
It is, and it's easy to hurt yourself. And it's easy, if you've got mental health problems,
you can do it sleeping.
It's easy to do it over and over again.
yeah. Dude, you can do it you can just sitting on the toilet in your 40s. You can just say, oh, well, I pulled my neck. I got to go lay down. No.
And I guess I didn't drink enough water. Oh, yeah. So.
No, I drank too much water. Oh, no. Okay. So it sounds like your track kind of was pretty early on, like directed toward, Eastern philosophy when it comes to medicine.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: what in your travels? Because I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, right? I mean, this is now
it's been decades. A bit. 27 years. Yeah.
I am fascinated by the sort of intersection of East meeting West when it comes to how we view the body and how we take care of ourselves, right? And like my question for you would be like, what do you think? This can be your opinion. I don't need you to state a fact for posterity here. Just what do you think Eastern medicine gets right that you think Western medicine might be most prone to getting wrong?
I think when you're in a hospital or in a doctor's setting, and I've had doctors come up to me and just be like, yeah, so what is it with this whole mind-body connection bullshit? And I'm like, but it's not, and you've studied this. Sometimes what it is, it can be a terminology gap, or someone hearing something in medical school and being like, that's a fact, and I don't need to deviate from it. Right. Until some research paper comes out proving it wrong, that is the way that I will focus. And this is a very broad statement, but to those doctors, I've been like, well, what's driving the car? Is it the mind or the body? They go, oh, it's that simple. And I go, well, I mean, yes and no, but it's a really good starting point. But we have other things like the autonomic nervous system. We have rest and digest and fight or flight. And we'll be in rest and digest until something stressful happens. Then we go to fight or flight. Your digestion shuts down. And then when you're able to calm down after whatever that situation was, you will move back to. And these are things that are happening in the mind that are having a very direct effect on the body.
Let me stop you there, because that's
sure.
I've never heard those. I've heard fight or flight. I've never heard of rest and digest. Are you saying that like the body stops digesting when you're like freaked out or in like? But what about the phrase "scare the shit out of someone"? Wouldn't that imply that they're going to poop their pants because they're so scared? Isn't that digestion?
Pooping is not digestion. That is evacuation.
Oh,
that is making the load lighter. Yeah. The sphincter muscles are always on until we like let them go. But yeah, absolutely. The different things will happen. That's not digestion. But you're absolutely
GI tract stops doing digestive things when you're like in fight or flight.
Well, so and this is something that's really interesting. Sorry, I don't know if I get bouncy sound when I get excited, but I do get enthusiastic about this because I've only just recently realized the number of people who have heard of fight or flight have never heard of rest and digest, and they are the opposite side of the same system within the body. So the fight or flight is turning off of the rest and digest. And the fight or flight should be very temporary. We should be able to relax. But one of the things, the body hasn't figured out that we've got locks on our doors and the lion's not coming. And the body hasn't figured out that we don't need to chase our food. We can go to, Vaughn's,
right.
I don't know where your clientele.
I think there are like 3 grocery stores left in the entire world. So it's either Vaughn's or Kroger or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a different podcast altogether. But
zip it, or you're going to get taken out.
Right. This is fascinating stuff because again, there's a perfect example of like I have always been completely fascinated by the fact that in the U.S. and in Western medicine, we treat mental health and physical health as though they are 2 different things. Like, if you look at it, up until even a few years ago, insurance was not necessarily on board with mental health care. And I always thought it was funny. It's like, where do you think your mind lives? Like, I'm pretty sure it's in your body. Like, there just seems to be this disconnect in Western medical thinking between what happens upstairs and what happens in the rest of the body. Whereas it sounds like in Eastern medicine, they kind of view it as more of like a one whole deal,
Well, that is definitely one of the things that I have clients come in all the time who are very nervous about telling me about certain things that they're dealing with because they've been to a doctor who has told them that it's all in their head, essentially saying, get out of my office.
Right.
And when you're in the office that I work in, with me and any one of my colleagues, if it's all in your head, let's get to work.
Right.
So, we don't treat it as something that needs to be brushed off. That will be our starting point. But, people who are stressed out aren't open, or depressed people aren't open. When I say that, I just mean like stressed. You'll see people putting it up here between their eyebrows, or
we're like all hunched up and not like
what this guy's feeling.
Yeah,
and the depressed person, they'll be here,
right.
You wear it in your body.
In your body.
It physically manifests in any number of ways. Some people who something will change, and then that change won't be an issue anymore, but the change in the body remains. As an example, any number of people who have been in an accident and develop a limp because of a broken bone and a splint, or a brace, or a twisted ankle on a trail, and they start to change how they move.
Right.
And when the pain dissipates, when the injury has healed, very often the change to the gait remains. And I work on getting rid of that. And so many people will be like, oh, this is making me nervous. I'm like, yeah, but that injury was years ago. And they say it's hard to think about it that way. So part of it, but if they do the limp or they do the change in movement, they're able to kind of give into these things. And that a doctor would say is all in your head. Get out of my office. Just do the thing.
Well, you're exactly right.
I'm like, it's in the head. Let's get to work.
If I can share my own personal kind of recent story with in regard to this, like this toe thing that I've got going on, it's technically the prescription or the diagnosis is hallux limitus, which just means limited toe joint. If you
hallux, great toe.
Yeah, it's the joint, but it's basically the joint between my metatarsal and the first bone of the big toe, right? Like under the ball.
Yeah, first.
Yeah.
Right.
So like it just doesn't, like when you bend your toe back, it should go back 90 degrees or something like that. Like it's almost like a finger, like it should.
It can.
But on my right side, it just.
But like many fingers, like will have changes, will have differences. Like this thumb won't go back.
One goes more than the other.
Will.
Well, so on my right side, nothing. I've got some very limited range of motion, and it gets pretty painful after like standing in work boots on a concrete floor, which I do for a living, or on an extended long hike or whatever. And honestly, this has been a problem since it's been an increasingly annoying problem since like at least my late 20s. I've gone to probably 4 or 5 different doctors about it over the years. I've gotten 4 or 5 different answers. The most recent 2 doctors I saw were both podiatrists. One of whom was just like, he literally took one look at my toe, was like, yeah, it's arthritis. I can't do anything about that. I can give you some anti-inflammatory meds. And I was like, I'm leaving. I'm going to get like, excuse me, I got to go. You didn't even clock in to your job today, buddy. Like if I went to a mechanic who I was like, yeah, my car's making a noise. He looked at it. He's like, yeah, your transmission's screwed. I'll give you some new fluid. It's like, I would just be like, well, I'm not paying you for this. This is, but I went to another podiatrist very recently. This guy seemed very knowledgeable and professional. He kind of took the time to sort of inspect the toe. And he said much the same thing, which is that it's hallux limitus. And like, there's possibly some arthritis in there. And he just said like, he prescribed some anti-inflammatory meds. And then he's like, when it gets bad enough, we'll just replace the toe with like a piece of metal. And I'm like, huh. And I asked him just sort of like on my way out the door, I was like, hey, do you think physical therapy might help this at all? And he's like, he kind of looks at me and goes, yeah, maybe. And he's like, I'll write you a script. And so he wrote me a prescription for physical therapy. And I get into this clinic near my house, and this person, no, I know. Like I can see it in your face, but like I had the same. I'm like, what do you mean? Like you're just gonna dope me up until the joint breaks, and then you're gonna friggin' replace it with a piece of metal? So I'm like, let's try some physical. So I went and found this physical therapist, and she is absolutely amazing. She treats distance hikers and ultra marathoners like as her specialty. She knows all about the shit that goes wrong with people's bodies when they try to do this insane thing, and she has been an absolute miracle worker. But like honestly, I'm not going to say the pain is gone, but I've only been doing it for 3 weeks. But like the degree to which the amount of pain and stiffness in that joint has already gone down after just focusing on the muscles that connect to that joint and the ligaments and the connective tissue around that joint, and like focusing on movement and how I use my body as opposed to just like taking a pill. To me, it's like, I don't understand how, unless you're like a conspiracy theorist who's like thinking that this is all, we can go down that rabbit hole if you want, but like, I don't understand how it's more cost effective to just like give people pills and then cut them open than it is to fix the problem if you can fix it with like movement-based practice. And I just like, how much of that do you see, how much do you see of like people sort of running into this mindset in a traditional doctor's office and then coming to you and you having that a similar experience?
I think we train, like society will train its systems, right? I'm sure there's plenty of research on any number of ways that that's true. And non-compliance among the vast majority of patients is likely training your doctor. People who are prescribing physical therapy to people who are not going to do it or not going to show up or not going to do the exercises. That's one example. Also, something to remember too is a lot of doctors will learn about things and they get very focused. A podiatrist is thinking a great deal about the foot, ankle, maybe the calf, and maybe kind of from like the knee down, they've got a good knowledge base.
Right.
But they're not well versed in physical therapy. They're not well versed in any number of other things going on in the body. So they're gonna deal with their own limitations in regards to that. Physical therapists are also, in the grand scheme of things, a very recent addition to healthcare.
Really?
So there's any number of, 50 plus years, easy, right. But that's,
Before
still.
that, what do we, it was leeches? Like, what do we do?
Yeah, well, hammers and
here's some cocaine. Go.
Cocaine, yeah, works great, and if you've got another surgery to do, go ahead and do a line. Oh, and you can give it to the patient for, pain killing. But I think there's still a lot of doctors who are like, oh, physical therapy is kind of quackery, and maybe those doctors are much older now. Sure.
That is fascinating. I think that there would.
Like I said, I've worked on doctors who are only coming to see me because they went to their doctor friend for their back pain, and they were like, "Hey, can you prescribe me some pain meds because I can't prescribe them to myself because of laws." And their friend would be like, "Yeah, I'll do that right after you go see physical therapy and you get some body work done."
Right.
Go,
right. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
At least try.
And then they come see me, and I had a doctor come in who was like, "You can try and get rid of the headache that I've had for 2 weeks, and then when you fail, I'll go to my friend who will prescribe me the thing that I know will work." And I was like, "But you're going to let me try, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I love this story because a lot of headaches are tricky and they take a while. And this doctor's headache was effortless. His trigger points were all textbook. I was like, upper trapezius, SCM. I was like, "Do you feel the headache there and there?" And he's like, yeah, I do. He's like, "You're making it worse." And I'm like, I let go. I'm like, "Is it dissipating?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I don't feel it." I was like, "Let me keep working." And I think 15 minutes, I got rid of this guy's headache that he had for 2 weeks. And that doesn't happen every time. But when it does happen, you're like, "Yeah, I did it."
It's not typical.
But it was atypical, but it does happen. Sometimes people will come in and they'll describe a very particular pain referral pattern, and I'm already thinking, I'm like, "Oh, that's likely SCM, sternum clavicle mastoid process,
sure,
sternocleidomastoid and upper trapezius, right in here and right about kind of in between the most lateral and most medial point. You can find something there, and I'll just hold it or press it, and we can sometimes just it's a tension in the muscle around nerve bundle or nerve that is creating a referred pain. That's why we call it a trigger point. It's a point here that triggers a sensation elsewhere. So and I found it and I worked on it, and he's like, "What the hell is that?" And I described it in very, medical terminology. So he would at least listen to me. And then he started referring people over to, that was when I was working at physical therapy specialists in Beverly Hills. He started referring his patients over there.
See, that's
because that's just one doctor. I've worked on other doctors. I did acupuncture for a neuropathologist, and he goes, "Okay, how's that work?" And I'm like, "Well, if
you're the neuropathologist,
research it, that would be great." He's like, "No, peripheral nerves, those are boring. I just play with the brain," but he had zero care about how the brain thought.
Yeah, right.
Which I thought was really funny. He's like, the neuropathologist is probably looking at talk therapy like that's quackery. It's like, what do you do?
So it sounds
like, "Hey, are you going to go see therapy?" No.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Sorry,
No, it's all right.
I got to plug in the computer and.
Okay, yeah. We don't want to lose you here.
So sorry, and the moment this has any kind of tug on it, here we go.
Do your thing.
Pardon me. A little shift. Sorry about that. Thought this was done. Okay. Boop.
Okay. So
there we go.
It sounds like, it's a combination of, people holding a hammer and having everything look like a nail in terms of their specialty, whatever they're trained in is what they're going to see. And then also maybe a little bit mixed in there of like this sort of like experienced outcomes on their part are like influenced by the fact that a lot of people probably don't do the work to heal themselves in whatever way that whether it's physical therapy or talk therapy or whatever you have to do. And like maybe they just get a little jaded. Maybe like after a certain number of years of doing that, you kind of just like say, okay, well, here's a pill, like good luck, and if you
and that's just one potential, one of the issues that I get to see more and more these days is hint that insurance companies are running the show. Yeah. So if you're a doctor who relies on getting paid via insurance companies, you are changing the way you treat people. It does make it more difficult for people who have started a career because they're interested in helping people. They start to find themselves constrained in various ways, and I'll be vague, because it's going to be so different. I mean, that's a huge thing to dive down. If you want to read, Revenge of the Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell, he's talking about kind of like the rise of opioid addiction. And, when 20 years ago, when I was working in Santa Barbara, I saw a great deal of that, unfortunately. And it was very strange because when I moved to Los Angeles, I stopped seeing people who were addicted to opioids. So I don't know. I thought it was going to be worse. And I was totally wrong about that. Surely it was elsewhere. And just maybe I was no longer in that particular environment. Maybe people in a different environment here in Los Angeles are like, what is this guy talking about? It's rampant. But, you don't know. You see little microclusters. Everything's going to be different. Yeah. But something that you said earlier, it's possible that I had said it to you before it kind of clicked with you, that healing takes place in the presence of movement. And that is something that was said to me when I was in massage therapy school in like 1999. My teacher's name was Blaine. I don't remember his last name, but I'll never forget him saying that. And that immediately resonated with me. But one of the things that's hidden within that is stasis is a different form of stimulant, right? Like we stimulate the muscles with exercise, but they're also being stimulated just in the opposite way by sitting on the couch eating chips, watching TV. So the body's going to respond to both of those things. People who are, overweight, that wasn't from nothing. That happened because of something else, right? So we've got to find various balances. And I think that's one of the things that, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, looks more at. And sure, there's plenty of TCM that I'm like, well, I'm not going to use that. That's a little closer to voodoo.
Yeah, like can you throw your chi and like blow out a candle across the room?
Yeah, see that sort of thing. Those videos of the Aikido instructor. Not all Aikido.
Hashtag not all Aikido.
Not all Aikido. Yeah, I got to watch myself though, because they're going to start trying to throw their chi, and they're going to work in class.
I feel like the we could keep talking about insurance stuff, but a sizable percentage of the people who listen to this podcast are European, and I can just see their faces as soon as we start talking, just shriveling into a horrified mask, because they're like, I don't understand how you put up with any of this. They really just no other industrialized nation on the planet does things quite the way we do them here in the good old U.S. of A.
But in Europe, they really don't respect the feelings of the billionaires how much money they could get.
Why won't somebody think of the billionaires is my question. Well, I feel like they are an underrepresented group
They are, and it's so they barely have any voice in our government or in how anything is done.
They're certainly not completely controlling everything. That's a ludicrous proposition. Okay, this is a great segue to talk about
the worst image in my mind.
I know. Listen,
swirling their glass of child's blood.
Here's the thing. You have no idea, Wade, how much I struggle to keep current events out of this goddamn podcast. Like, because it's just, I mean, you're living through the same year I think we all are, and it's just every week I sit down, I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk about hiking. It's just hiking. We're just doing hiking, But it is really, I mean, look, we're all living through the same garbage timeline. My goal is to maybe be like a distraction and possibly a little bit of entertainment and information.
Honestly, for all of your European listeners, we're just trying to not go
my
insane.
Wonderful Euros out there.
We're just trying to not let our empathy just, force us into a curled up ball in a corner. What? Anyway,
so that's so.
I could cry at any given moment.
Same, buddy.
Is what I would say.
I hear you, but okay. So let's talk a little bit about movement, because this is. I mean, look. Ultimately, what I'm attempting to do here is just an absolutely crazy amount of movement that's going to take 5 months, and it's basically every day I'm going to be walking all day, right? So it's nothing but movement, basically. You only stop to eat and sleep, pretty much. And this episode, and I think maybe this whole podcast, is kind of like an instruction manual that I wish I could like blip back in time to like the 20-something-year-old version of myself when I was first getting into this hobby. Because and what I would love it, and like, since most people who go on this trail are in their 20s, like I would like it if those people could hear, as I wish my younger self could hear, like advice that sort of talks about both what you can do when you're on the trail to sort of ease the sort of aches and pains that come along with just the massive amount of abuse you're putting into your body by doing this thing, and like how they might be able to maintain a movement practice outside of their hiking in a way that will like prolong their hiking life, essentially, and like give them the maximum number of years of enjoying what is, really like, I mean, not that grueling of a hobby. If you think about it, you're just walking. I mean, you got a pack on your back and there are mountains involved. And of course, those two things definitely change the math a little bit, but it is ultimately walking, right? Like it's this graceful, balanced, very natural movement that I think like, you almost, I took it for granted in my 20s how easy it was to move 20 or 30 miles in a day with a pack on my back. Like it just seemed like I think a lot of people out there, they never even think about it. And then you sort of get a few years older and you try doing the same thing, and all of a sudden it's this whole different game where there's like all this new stuff you got to worry about. And so I think like that's kind of where I want to jump into the movement aspect. And the first way I want to ask that question is, in terms of maintaining a healthy body, in terms of hiking and taking care of yourself as you get older, nutrition, movement practice, or postural awareness. Marry, bang, kill. Go.
Okay, and now I'm like, feel like if I were in a congressional hearing, I would go off on some story and not answer your question. But
it's because very simple. You got to marry one of them, you got to bang one of them, you got to kill one of them. It's such an easy game.
Give me the three again. You had the nutritional, you had the postural, you had the
nutrition, movement practice, and postural awareness.
Yeah. Okay, those are great. Perfect. You want to separate them?
I mean, you're kind of you're failing to grasp the rules of the game here. Yeah, but,
all right, here, check it out. So, how about this? Again, this is also a big part of my practice, is talking about posture. And one of the things that I've seen on the decline is posture. And it's gotten so much worse. With the COVID shutdown, so many people went home from their office. At their office, they had a desktop computer with a monitor and a keyboard. And they went home and they no longer had the desk. They had the kitchen table and they had the laptop where their keyboard and monitor were attached to one another. And they gradually started falling into their work and into their microphone. And in so doing, it's been really changing the way people move about during their day. And I think because of that, I've been working so much more at retraining to as close to an optimum posture as possible so many people. And that's the baseline. And then we can move on to the movement, because I try and take a person's crappy sitting and turn it into a better sitting to try and go to a better standing and then to a better walking. So
no, of course, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
And honestly, going back to my own little example of physical therapy, when because I've been strength training now for months, and I'm like in the gym, and I played a lot of organized sports when I was a kid, and I come from like the church of the barbell, man. Like, it's all about just like loading up weight and pushing that weight around. And like, look, there is good science to support that like high intensity strength training has a lot of health benefits, especially in older adults. Like sarcopenia can be basically reversed with high intensity strength training. Like all this, like there's like this really interesting sort of science out there. But as soon as this woman put me on one foot, and she was like, okay, do that same movement that you like have no problem doing hundreds of pounds on a bar with. And I tried it with no weight. I looked like a drunk failing a sobriety test. I couldn't even stand on one foot. And so
we've been eliminating balance from our exercises for years. We've been making it easier and easier, having machines guide you through a movement. And people will do, say, just a simple chest press with a machine. And the moment you ask them to use far less weight, but with dumbbells, and their arms are
all wobbly.
They're all wobbly. They just can't do it, and they're like, oh my god, everything hurts. I'm trying to get more people to get away from the bar, get away from the machines, lower your weights, etc.
Well, it sounds like,
anyway, you were saying.
No, it's just kind of piggybacking on what you were saying. Like, it's like getting yourself into the right posture and the right balance first, and then moving up and progressing in terms of the intensity and the weight. Like, that's the only way. Like, you can't. And this therapist said something to me interesting, actually, just last week. She was saying, think about when you were a kid and you were out, like, running around. I know children don't run around outside anymore, but, like, we're both old dudes. So remember back in the 80s when you could, like, run around outside and, like, be a child and do physical kid things? You'd go outside, and she's like, you were constantly training your balance. Think about it. Every time there was like a parking curb or a rock or a picnic bench, what's the first thing you did? You climbed right up on top of that mofo. You jump off it. You do like whatever, like weird stuff. Like you were always engaging the parts of your body that need to stabilize you in like a dynamic like range of motion. And then you become an adult, and you either get a job standing at a kind of a standy uppy either physical labor or customer service job, or you get an office job, which is even worse. You're sitting down at a desk all day, and you completely stop training balance. You completely ignore because you don't have to balance. I'm sitting in an office chair right now. The risk of me falling over is pretty minimal. And so it's like the degradation of that foundational kind of postural stuff. It seems like it starts as soon as we stop being kids running around playing on a playground, and when we start being adults doing adult things, that are work or life related.
Yeah, outside of that, even just modern society, we love to pave our surfaces. We love to level off our floors. There's no challenge there. We stuff our feet into socks and then shoes for a lifetime, changing how our feet develop, changing how our proprioceptors, the nerves that send the information of where we are in space and time back to the brain, that we change how they develop and how sensitive they become. I'll meet people who, when barefoot, their toes will not only hammer, but their pinky toes like up off the floor, sometimes two toes up off the floor, bunions that, big toes coming over in one or two cases all the way under the next two toes.
Wow. Because
they haven't been engaging. That was the worst I've ever seen. They haven't been engaging their feet.
That's some lizard foot shit. That's like, do you ever see somebody's feet and you gotta be like, oh, like you have to avoid the shock factor of like looking at like a reptilian
I've
claw.
seen a lot of stuff now. So
nothing shocks you?
I haven't been shocked by anything in a while.
Dude,
I've
when
seen
I
some
first
crazy stuff.
When I was going through my assessment,
but that's another full podcast. I could just talk about crazy stuff.
Let me tell you.
But then at the same time, I'm not sure I would talk about my people either.
Yeah, no, don't.
If they saw me, they'd be like, "He's talking about me." But
that's fucking awful. Yeah, you'd lose. No, but I can talk about myself.
One person. Yeah, I have one person who survived a fall, and she ended up needing multiple surgeries to both her legs and bone grafts and that sort of thing, and it left her pretty scarred. And she was very gracious to come to the class that I taught. I actually, you mentioned that in my bio. I don't teach that class anymore, but I think I should. Only because.
Also, how do you pronounce that? Did I get that right?
Toina. Yeah, you did it.
Toina.
You did it.
Okay.
That's what we would call it when I was teaching it, because it was part of the curriculum. It's traditional Chinese massage therapy. Okay. That technique-wise, it's very similar to sports massage. In fact, they probably just took Toina techniques and they were like, you know what? We don't want to use that word. We want to make it our own, or we want to, what do you call it? Appropriate it. So let's call it. Yeah, let's call it sports medicine. Or physical therapists will do acupuncture, but they won't call it acupuncture. They'll call it dry needling. So I'm like, using acupuncture needles? Yeah. I took a weekend seminar to learn how to do it. And I'm like, okay.
Dry needling, like, could you make it sound less appealing? Is there something like,
I know, right?
Don't go in dry. We're not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, just like acupuncture, cool. Dry.
Although, you know what? Wet needling does not sound better. To be honest. Now that I say it out loud, I don't want to be wet needled either.
I don't want to be moist needled for sure.
Moist needled. Nobody wants to be moist needled. When I got in for my assessment at physical therapy, this person who has like 20 years of experience dealing specifically with people who have my hobby and like, I guess, body type or whatever, she was going through and like testing the range of motion in all the different joints around this toe. And, the toe doesn't bend back very far, so that's no surprise there. She tried to bend it back and couldn't move. But then she like tried to, I don't know what you call this. Is it flex? It's flexion when the ankle's back like this, right? Like if it was like, if you're pulling your toes toward you.
They're both flexion, but dorsal fin is on the back, so dorsiflexion, and then plantar flexion. So and that's
she was
specific to the ankle. Yeah.
Okay, so she was testing dorsiflexion, and she pushes back on my foot, and then she says, not to me, not to anyone really, just sort of like aloud to herself, seriously? And I'm like, yo, what do you mean seriously? This is come on, it's not that bad. And she's like, but again, like what? So the first thing she did when she's felt that was after we went through our sort of assessment, she put me on the table and she got her friggin' iron thumbs into the side of my calf, into the soleus muscle, basically, like low down, almost at the ankle, like into the outside
closer
of my calf.
To the Achilles. Yeah,
and
on the outside. So you've got a few muscles there, and also if I might, three muscles that go to the big toe, that go up the inside and attach to the back of your tibia. Really? The Tom, Dick, and Harry muscles. Dick and Harry don't remember. Harry is hallucis longus, so I remember that one. Forget Tom. But my point is, if you've got limited range of motion at the big toe, I do wonder how much of that might be limiting the range at the ankle as well. I don't know.
Like it's sort of protecting the
that's
toe
a good
by
question for your PT.
But when she got in there, she dug around there. First of all, my soleus left my body when she started. I mean, it was the most painful goddamn thing. Like it was, but as soon as she did that, the range of motion immediately increased. It was like, all of this like fascia and connective tissue was just like locking up that joint. It was there. And I guess to your point, it might be like trying to protect the toe joint and like keep it from having to move farther than it can.
Right. And I do work when I work in that area. So, the soleus, it's such an awesome muscle. We use it a lot.
Can't stand up without it.
Can't really stand up without it. But do you know that exhibit Body Worlds? It was the cadavers that the guy figured out how to perfectly preserve. That exhibit changed the way that I work on the soleus, because there was one particular body where the gastrocnemius muscles, the little disc
That's the
muscles
calf.
that are
That's
up
like
high,
the meaty part of the calf, right? Like
no, but it's not. It's barely anything. No, and
what
this
are
is
like
what changed.
when I say calves and everyone thinks of the fucking 2 grapefruits that live on the back of your well grapefruits if you got big calves. What are those called? What's that?
Those are the gastrocnemius muscles.
That is the gastrocnemius.
They attach up high, and they cross the knee as well. So they help bend the knee, but also they help plantar flexion.
Right.
But in this body, they had those kind of lifted up and away from the soleus, and then the soleus lifted away from the tibia.
Okay.
So lifted backwards away from the tibia.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, the soleus is huge.
It's like most of the muscle, right?
It is the calf. When you think calf, you're thinking soleus, but we often think about those two like the extra bits, the discs that you'll see on like the bodybuilders, and that's how I always thought about them as well.
But because like if you think about it, like if you go to the gym,
I'll also get rid of. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll also get rid of some people's knee pain that they feel on the inside just by gripping medial gastroc. And I'll kind of isolate it. I'll hold that sucker. People will pound on the table a little bit. I'll let go, have them move around, and they're like, okay, well, my knee doesn't hurt anymore. So certain knee pain, like that, from the gastrocs, it's not like they're doing nothing. But I got to say, but also where you're describing lower on the soleus, where it's getting more dense with fibers that are becoming the Achilles tendon, I will have someone face down and I will squeeze like I'm trying to lift the lower part of soleus up away from the tibia. And that can be very painful, but it's very effective. Yeah, it's awesome when I stop. That is the
listen. Well, I think that's I mean, if you think about like if you go to the gym, what do you do to like train your calves, right? You're doing like you're like lifting off on the front of your foot and like basically plantar flexing the ankle, right?
Right.
So, but that's the gastrocnemius. That's people think of that as like it's like the muscle that does the lifting.
If you're, but it's not. Yeah, it's
not. So you're saying the soleus is engaging when you're doing.
I mean, that's the power mover. That's the soleus.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to get to that one because we got what I want to do, and we've only, we're coming up on an hour here, so we'll, I'm going to.
Oh man, I've got so much to say.
I know. Well, listen, we may have to do another one. We might,
we're going to have to do another one. Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about some movements, and I've got like a little split screen here I can pull up to go through some movements. So let's start. I want to break this into 2 categories. The first category will be kind of things that people can do on the trail if they're on one of these long hikes, right? And so you're going to be limited in that aspect by basically the stuff you can carry with you. Obviously, you have very limited room in a backpack, and every gram of your weight counts when you're exhausting yourself every day. So pretty much the only piece of gear for this one is going to be this guy right here. This is just it's a lacrosse ball, but it's made out of cork. So it's extremely lightweight. It's a little cork lacrosse ball that you can pack, and it weighs nothing. So this is like the big myofascial release one. We'll get to this in a minute. But in terms of movements, I'm going to switch us over to our 3-way screen here. There you go. This first one that I'm pulling up here. Can you see that?
Yeah, the hip flexor stretch.
The first one is a hip flexor stretch.
Kneeling.
And this is the one. So my physical therapist was like, oh, sorry, I just clicked through. Okay. So my physical therapist, she was like, if you do one thing every day on the trail, do this. And
I'll go with that.
And I'll tell you, like the first time I did it in the office, it was like I could barely. So the cues for this, essentially, you can see the person just sort of one foot is in front of you with your knee bent. The other one, you're on that knee. I use it. I folded up my little Z-Rest sleeping pad under that knee to make it a little more comfy.
So just thinking the exact same thing. You could also have it going along your tibia, because some people have a hard time getting their ankle to do that.
Right.
I personally have a difficult time having my knee on the floor. So you can have the knee ahead of that pad and your foot hanging off of part of the pad. Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
now it's interesting because in the office, at least, she was having me flex the ankle so that my toe was curled under, like basically
Yeah,
with the,
you
with
can
the
do that
foot.
too.
Which one do you think
Sure.
which one do you think is a more effective if you're just trying to focus on the hip flexors? Does it matter?
Yeah, that's not how we're thinking about it. Let's think about it this way. Everyone's different. Everyone's going to be more comfortable in some variation. I don't want anyone getting locked into, oh, see how this person's doing it? That's how you have to do it.
Okay.
And that's why I see so many people coming in with injuries from yoga, because they were trying to look like the pretzel next to them, couldn't manage that, hurt themselves, and they're like, oh, I was just trying to do what the instructor was telling me to do. I'm like, yeah, but you were probably doing it like them, huh? And like, yeah. So then like, and then I heard a pop. So
yeah. Okay, so let's.
So if you can think like, let's open our minds to trying to be comfortable as an individual. This person, like, that's great if she's comfortable here, but even getting some people just into this freeze frame photo of her about to do this stretch, some people, their hip flexors will be so tight that it'll be yanking her pelvis down, so the booty would be more out, the belly
that's
would be
me.
more
You're talking
out.
about me. You're talking about me.
Yes.
You're describing me right now.
Yes.
So basically, when I did this,
so you have to engage other stuff.
All that the therapist had me do was from this exact posture. Essentially, the cues were, get as tall as you can, get your shoulders away from your ears, get your back as straight up and down as you can, and then all she had me do was just use my lower abs and my core muscles to tuck my tailbone and like roll the pelvis. And as soon as that happened, that was all the stretch I freaking needed.
You don't need to go further. People will get into this position and they think, well, now I need to move forward. You really don't.
Right.
It's true.
And so the more like varsity level move, if you do feel like this isn't a stretch, the next step, and I'll hit play here, you can see her, she's going to go forward, right? I think she's going to go forward, or is this just like a freeze frame? I don't even know. This is okay. She's not going anywhere, but she's a rock. So, but like the next sort of upgrade to this, if you don't feel much of a stretch in that position, would be to like sort of, in this case, her left knee, she would bend the left knee a little bit and like lean her weight out forward a little bit while keeping everything nice and long and straight through the torso and the head.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the ticket. But also people will feel pain in the front of their hip flexor. But some people also feel pain kind of where if this were my sacrum and this is the iliac crest coming off to the side, where the other side would be coming off this way, right where my hands are meeting, people will feel pain in the back. And that can be deep hip flexor tension. You got 3 hip flexors per side, psoas major, iliacus, and rectus femoris. Boom.
So you're saying
is on the inner dish.
So you can refer pain all the way out to like the edge of your hips in this? Like
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Huh. And I'll get some people's low back pain will be stubborn. And if it's stubborn, I'm immediately thinking, well, honestly, when people have low back pain, I start with the hip flexors. I start there, because these days with so many people just sitting in chairs for their work, I'm finding passively shortened hip flexors like crazy. I get them to lay on a table, their spine is arching because their hips are trying to stay in flexion via muscles that attach to the inner dish of the iliac crest and the spine. Psoas comes off the spine. Psoas major comes off the spine. Well, minor too, but it doesn't cross the hip joint. I'm a nerd. And iliacus, it's a weirdo conjoined twin because their tendons fuse together and grab onto the same place. So from the pelvis and from the lumbar spine, it's trying to stay short as close to the femur as possible. So that's hip flexion.
So that rolls your hips into the wrong position.
That'll,
right?
if you're standing up and giving into hip flexor tension, you've got your booty sticking out, your belly sticking out, and you're never finding your way into true neutral hip or true hip extension down below. I don't know if these things are making sense to you.
It makes total sense. But, honestly, Wade,
yeah.
this reminds me of something that we talked about. I mean, this has to be years ago. And you were working on something that I had messed up. This is like the pattern with you and I. It was like when we were living in the same building, you were like my resident. Right. You were like the fix-it guy. I would go out and break something, doing something stupid, and I'd come back and be like, hey, Where are you at? Like, and
Yes,
you
you would.
and you were talking to me one time because I was having some pretty horrific lower back pain, and I've had, of all the spinal issues that I have right now, my lower back is the only thing that doesn't have anything structurally wrong with it. I've had a very recent MRI and it was perfect, and I don't really have lower back pain.
That's
but
amazing.
I know, I'm like especially for like a bigger guy. I mean, it's like the only part of my back that doesn't hurt, and. I remember I was having this lower back pain, and you said something to me that was like profound. I remembered it to this day, which is like you talked about the difference in size between the muscles that attach to the top of your hips and the muscles that attach to the underside of your hips, and like how if any, like especially like your glutes, right, which are the biggest muscle group in your body, if they get tweaky or weak or inflexible, they're going to want to put pressure on the hips and pull in one direction, and your back muscles, which are these teeny tiny little, not like relatively teeny tiny little muscles, they're just going to get just pulled and tensioned, and like they're not going to be able to like keep up with it basically, and that's where all these people start running into lower back issues. And it's, I think about that, not only while I'm hiking, but honestly, in so much of what I do, both in terms of physical training and just everyday life, which is this idea of like, you have to like make sure your legs are strong and flexible in order to take care of your back. And like, what a fascinating again, it goes back to this, like, it's just one body. You're just one meat-covered skeleton ripping around doing human stuff. It's not like, my back is messed up. It's like, no, your whole body is messed up. Yeah. You need to start we'll start at the ground, and we'll go up from there.
Right. But I have a woman who she's been coming in more regular these days. And I'm very glad because she has steeper curves in her spine, where her lumbar spine has a steeper curve forward. Her thoracic spine has a steeper curve in the back. And then, of course, the C spine has to rest on top of this. So it has a steeper curve as well. So lordosis, kyphosis, lordosis.
I was getting ready to say lordosis and kyphosis because I actually know those because of my own trials and tribulations. I was going to feel all smart for a second. You beat me to it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you're grabbing onto that. But she comes in talking about these things. I start all the way down at her calves and tibialis anterior, quads, hamstrings, and I'm describing to her, I'm like, we need to get the pelvis into a better position so we can start working on the things above. And the way that I was describing, she's like, that makes sense. But no one had ever really spoken to her about that. Also, to a similar but different point, a lot of people will say, I have low back pain. And I go, okay. And I always ask, can you point right to where you're talking about? And they'll reach back and they'll put their hands below their iliac crest. So iliac crest, back is above, glutes are below. They put their hands right on the upper glute medius muscles, which come off of the iliac crest. Maximus comes off of sacrum. So they'll put their hands right on the top of that. And they go, right here. And I go, if I could make a little distinction for you and call that high hip and not low back, does that make sense to you? And they go, yeah, it does. And I start showing them some leg stretches, have them get up. Sometimes it'll be very simple. They'll be like, yes, I feel that pain right now. I have them lay down, pull a knee towards their chest, maybe towards their opposite shoulder just a little bit to really open up glute medius, give it 30 seconds one side, 30 seconds the other side, have them stand up. I'm like, how does that feel? They're like, I don't feel it, or it's harder to find, or it's still there, but it's, more diminished, in the cases that it is, in fact, that problem. Right. I go, all right, cool. I've got a good sense of what's going on. Let's get to work, because it's not all there. Hip flexor tension will equal glutes working harder. So if the pelvis is rocking forward, glutes are working harder to hold the torso up, or to stabilize the pelvis in order for the torso to be resting on top of it. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit, because I want to talk about the posterior chain. I mean, while we're talking about movements that you can do on trail, we are. Well, I mean, hip flexors were kind of. Let's move around the other side. Let's talk about the glutes. But that is some of what I was describing. It's another reason why opening up, why using that stretch
for the hip flexor
equals releasing of pain in other places too.
Exactly.
Because people go, oh, the front of my hip hurts, my hip flexor hurts. But you can have pain in the glutes, upper glutes, or pain in the low back, and it's from the same thing. So there's multiple reasons to do that stretch every day when you're hiking.
Okay, so then 100% we're locking that one in. Let's talk about the glutes.
Yes.
If we're going to pick one stretch for the glutes, I've got this video pulled up. I know you can see it. I'm going to go to split screen in a minute, but I want you to pick. We've got like a figure 4, or we've got a crossbody glute stretch. Okay. Which of those do you like better?
Well, the figure 4 is going to go for a different muscle, the piriformis.
Right. So you think crossbody is a good glute? Do you want to start there?
Don't not do it.
Don't not do that. All right. Well, listen, we'll stretch the whole thing.
Yeah. And the piriformis is going to get, so also, it's no one factor. And I think that's a really good thing for everyone to remember and understand. And when you're out on a trail and you've got your backpack set up nicely and the weight is resting on the top of the pelvis to begin with, I want you to be thinking about a level pelvis while your pack is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, while you're moving. So
okay, let's look at this guy.
Doing your best with that.
This is something called a crossbody glute stretch. Let's see if we can roast this guy if he's not doing it right. But so he looks like
absolutely not.
This looks like he's laying down, and this is the one where you pull your knee across your body, right? Like
so I was just describing that. Yep, knee towards his same side, shoulder, and then he's probably talking about bringing it to. Yeah. So towards the opposite shoulder, so now he's elongating a little bit more glute medius, which does grab onto IT band, which it seems like he's describing as well.
So I freaking love this stretch. I do it almost daily, just as part of my life.
Yeah.
I definitely think this is one I would include in my arsenal of trail stretches.
And a quick thing that is not a roast. I'm so glad that this guy is demonstrating for us. Thanks, buddy. But as he's bringing,
look at you with your positive vibes,
dude. I'm not gonna, dude. I would never.
This is why I didn't film myself doing these movements, because I think it would just be like a different story. I think it'd be like, don't do that. Don't ever. Please stop doing that. You're hurting me doing that.
And what I'm about to describe, I think on you would be even more so. So as he's bringing his knee up, he's rocking his pelvis back. His right side is popping forward because of his own hip flexor tension on the right side.
Right. So you want to try and keep your body like almost like as if you were standing in a tall posture for this, right?
Yeah, and the cue that I give people is, as you do this, what I would say to him is, with his right foot, pull the toes back a little bit more, like they're aiming towards the ceiling.
Yep.
And then imagine like you're trying to squish a ball that is that your mind is placing behind your knee. So now you're using posterior chain muscles on the right to help you stretch out posterior chain muscles on the left.
That is, and
if you want, he can also, even from this position, you could multitask slightly, get the hands behind the hamstrings and extend the knee a little bit, and also pull back the foot. So like he's taking his left toes and trying to kick up and back. But also that's a lot of multitasking. But if we're trying to simplify some stuff where you're exhausted at the end of a hike day, you just need to do a couple things to try and have a good next day.
One other cue I've gotten from other physical therapists with this stretch in particular is that you want to try and you engage the muscles that basically flatten out your lower back, like you suck your belly button into your spine, so you're not like you got like your core is engaged while you're in this stretch. Basically, is that
honestly? I tell people every exercise you do is
always do that.
A core exercise.
Yeah.
Everything you do, if you could just please, for the love of God, initiate some kind of contraction in your core to
the obliques. The obliques, right?
Obliques as well.
Is that what that is? Are those the ones that are like under the sides here?
Yeah, you have internal and external oblique, but when you peel those away, you've got a third layer, and that's transversus abdominis. Ooh. Those are wrapping straight around versus at an oblique angle, and that is helping you pull your rectus abdominis, the six-pack muscle, which is actually an 8-pack. You're pulling that closer into.
Some of us it's a half barrel, buddy. So
Oh no! You start slicing away whatever you're talking about, and you'll find 8-pack. You're not going to see it.
I've got a keg covering it for
can't
for safety.
See me either. Yeah, I've got one of those narrow kegs. What are those narrow kegs?
Like a pony keg. You got like a pony keg.
A pony keg. Yes. There you go.
Okay.
anyway. But yes, that is a good cue as well. As you're bringing your knee up, you are going to be flattening out your spine on the floor anyway. Right. But if you engage your core at the same time, you're at least making that a more active process. So yeah, and that's great. And does he also roll it a little bit in this demonstration?
Let's watch him.
You don't have to.
Well, I mean, we're here. Might as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like he's getting a little bit of a roll in there. He's not like twisting his spine, it doesn't look like.
Right.
All right, let's move on, because he does have a piriformis stretch in here. Let's see what he's got going on here.
Yeah, there he goes.
All right, we're going to go ahead and skip forward to, it looks like he's doing, like a figure four. He's got his knee crossed. Yeah, okay. So this is like a chair stretch, basically.
Yeah, but from that, and one thing that I give people to do also is pull your foot, like his, so what is he? He's got his right ankle crossed over his left knee. I would take the right foot, and have him pull his toes towards his right knee.
Right.
Just
so
to
for anybody,
dorsiflex that side.
Just in case anybody's listening to this on audio rather than watching a video, this piriformis stretch, which, by the way, what a boring, if you're listening, you're like, what are these guys talking about? But this stretch is basically like a figure four where you cross one leg over the knee of the other leg and then kind of lean forward, and it pulls the piriformis and stretches it.
And even the lean forward, I would change up to lift your body tall and try and rotate or try and rock your pelvis like you're trying to get your navel towards the calf of that crossed leg. That's going to give you all the stretch you need right there.
Yep. Okay, so between the piriformis and the glute stretch, I think that's probably going to cover our bases, at least, and again, this is not meant to be a complete thing. It's just we have to, this working with what you have on trail, this would be like a good way to keep your leg muscles kind of,
I do have one, Eric. I do have one that I think we should add if we're doing this. That is the bilateral calf stretch. So both calves at the same time. And I would have you get like the toes and ball of the foot.
I've got a soleus stretch on here, so she's not doing she's doing one at a time, right? This is like the standard thing where you just.
This is one at a time.
Yeah, so you're talking about.
But this would be off of a stair, or in the case of the woods, maybe like a downed
log or a rock or something.
Sure, something you're hopefully not going to slip off of, and also hopefully something like close enough to a tree that you could hold on to. But I would have you do both legs at the same time, standing tall, and there, yes, that guy right there. So the top in that stack. Hopefully you understood what I meant.
This guy?
But
let's see what he's doing.
So he's maybe holding onto a wall.
Yeah.
Yes, I see it.
All right, let's put the fries in the bag, as the kids say.
Do they say that?
It's one of the things they say. Okay, so bilateral calf stretches where you're basically elevated on a step or a log, like you said, and you basically drop with both heels into the calf stretch.
Both heels at the same time, because that gives a lot of information up to the brain. And we'll have the tendency to want to kind of rock more onto one side and then the other. But if you let both go down, you'll feel one side is tighter. Right. If you just wait, your own body reflexively will try to achieve symmetry, and you'll feel the tighter side relax.
How long would you hold something like this?
That can take almost a minute.
Okay,
it can take
a
while.
long time,
and it is a long time. But if you just are patient with yourself, God damn it, then
that's why they call us the patient.
I know. I'm trying. Yeah, the patient's like, all right, can you do that? No, takes too long. If you could do that, I have plenty of people who will have knee pain that they feel in the lower front of their knee. I have them do this stretch. Gone. I have some people who will feel high hip or low back pain. I have them do this stretch. Gone. Not everyone. But there's enough people out there where just doing this particular stretch, and here you do have your knees locked out because you're trying to get gastrocnemius. The posterior chain, the muscles of the calf are reaching up, the muscles of the hamstring are reaching down in the back, creating this crisscross on the back of the knee. The hamstrings are reaching up.
Here. That's where,
past the pelvis, and the glutes are reaching down, also past the hip joint to the femur or the iliotibial band. So again, they're crossing one another, creating this chain. And then at the iliac crest, that's the barrier. The glute muscles reach up, stop there. The back muscles reach down, stop there.
Right.
The chain is kind of broken, unless we want to consider the link of the iliac crest. But then somebody more autistic than me might say, that's a lever.
Well,
So,
I mean,
I don't know.
that'll be for next week. We'll have autistic.
That'll be for next week, and
Okay, so real quick though, because this is gastrocnemius, right? This is all about the big meaty part of the top of the calf. What about
but
soleus?
it's not.
I got
that's
soleus
both.
here.
It's doing both.
Okay.
Yeah, all of those are both. We're not isolating. If the knee is locked, then gastrocs are being stretched. If knee is bent and you're pulling back and you're flexing the ankle, that's soleus only.
Right.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to bring up the soleus stretch because I feel like I get a lot of benefit out of this, and I feel like
great.
Especially if you're going uphill all day, right? Like that part of your calf just turns into jerky real fast, right? Like you can feel it all the way down to your ankle. So I wanted to talk about a soleus stretch real fast. I figure if you're doing your calves, you find a good rock or something, you get the bilateral calf stretch going, and then pretty much just right afterwards, you can do this guy where it's basically one foot is slightly in front of the other. You just like a calf stretch with one foot, you lean back on the rear foot to sort of engage to stretch the calf, and then all you do is you just bend your knee until you feel that in the lower part of your calf, that sort of the soleus, the soleus meets, if you will.
The soleus meets.
All right, so what are the cues for this one? Is there anything other than just go till you feel a stretch and kind of hang out there?
I would say try and feel like you're planting your heel into the ground.
Planting your heel, okay. The back heel,
so
the heel you're stretching.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
The heel that you're stretching, or the heel of the side you're stretching. And when you bend the knees, you're now just taking gastrocs out of the equation, focusing that onto the soleus muscle.
Right.
One of the ways that I do it, because I'm flexible enough, is I can get down onto the floor, bring one foot up and just have it flat on the floor so my knee is bent, and then I'll just lean onto my knee of that side, and I'm really able to stretch that out. And another alternative to that, maybe you find a downed branch or a rock that's kind of high up. You can stand next to it, get one foot up on there flat, so your knee's coming up and then your shin is coming down, and then you just hug your knee and lean over it like that. And now you're going to increase that. Exactly. Okay. So there's lots of different ways of doing it, and maybe some.
All right.
At some point we can demonstrate it.
We haven't talked about really the hamstrings in this. I mean, I know some of these stretches are going to hit a little bit of the hamstrings, but I just wanted to bring up a quick standing hamstring stretch, and because specifically you could. I mean, everybody knows how to stretch their hamstrings. This is not anything new to anybody. But one cue that I got recently that kind of changed the game here, and the reason I'm showing this image is that you'll notice what she's doing. She's leaning out over the hip, but you can see how the toes and the foot are starting to being pulled back, like dorsiflexed back. Like when I got that cue in physical therapy where it was just when you do the hamstring stretch, try to pull your toes and your foot back toward your body. And as soon as I did that, I mean, it stopped being just the hamstrings, right? I could feel that stuff all the way down my calf, all the way down my ankle, all the way under my foot. Yeah, you feel the whole thing stretching, in what is ostensibly a hamstring stretch. So I feel like this is probably going to make the rotation on a daily, on a daily stretch. The other thing that's interesting about this that she had me doing was she was like, if you twist your body, if you change the orientation, which way your shoulders are pointed, straight ahead versus right shoulder forward versus left shoulder forward, you will actually hit different parts of the hamstring and different parts of the calf on your way down. 100%. I could feel that stuff all through. It was different. It was I could feel the tension moving back and forth like friggin' bowstrings on a violin.
The hip socket is a ball, like a ball joint, ball and socket. So it has the ability to move in a spherical way, right? So muscles are going to be able to pull it at many, many degrees of movement.
Right.
So changing an angle even slightly, now you're aiming at a slightly different part of a combination of muscles surrounding the hip. And one of the things I would say, even what this woman is doing here, if you have a chair, great. Some alternative wonderful thing about a trail is you can find any number
like a rock or
whatever,
sleeping hiker,
exactly,
or whatever,
but
whatever you find.
If you find something like this, like the back of her chair, she could scoot forward and have her foot pressed up against the chair. If the chair was up against the wall, she would be more safe. Yeah, to help hold, so you don't have to actively pull your foot back. I'm thinking a little bit about an end of the day where you're exhausted and maybe you don't want to overly engage. But from that position also, you don't have to lean forward, because sometimes just with your foot kind of braced back, you'll feel that stretch just standing tall. And what I would say is stand tall, maybe hands on the hips, and just lift like you're trying to touch your heart up the wall that's across from her, if we're just thinking about the wall,
you're like,
or tree, or rock. And doing that little, changing your intent more up versus down, you're going to feel plenty of a stretch.
Well, it's like the difference in yoga between like that first part of the forward fold where you're just like your arms are out to the side and your back is upright and you're like going forward like this, and you can feel that crazy stretch down your hamstrings, and then you fold downward and you let your back release, and it's like a completely different stretch at that point. But like that really, when your posture is up but you're leaning forward, it catches those hamstrings before you. I mean, I barely have to lean forward to feel that stretch.
Right, and then when you release, you're able to go further forward, and that. Now we're getting into the realm of active release stretching, or PNF stretching, which is proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, where I'll have somebody, if I'm stretching them out and they're laying on their back, say, and I'm lifting their leg up, and I find their kind of end range for their hamstring, and then I'll get my shoulder underneath their low calf, have them push into me, basically simulating that kind of lift that you're talking about, where you're bending forward, you're loading the muscle. And then I have them, but when they're pressing into my shoulder, I don't let them actually move. So it's an isometric stretch. And they isometrically contract their hamstring, and then I have them release, and then I follow that release, and their leg goes up like another 6 inches. I can sometimes do that a few times and get that to release, and then I'll put it back down. So what you're describing is an active release stretch, and they're super effective to get a little bit further if that's what you need. And you can do that for any number of stretches.
So let's say we're out on the trail.
It's good to be aware of.
We got these killer stretches. You mentioned release, and the last thing I want to talk about is myofascial release with a little cork lacrosse ball here, because there's not a lot that backpackers, especially long distance backpackers, are real weenies when it comes to carrying things that aren't strictly necessary.
I know. I've met you, dude.
I mean, and I'm not even, bro. Like, I got 2 sleeping pads. I am a heretic in this world. Like, I don't. Dude, because I'm gonna sleep comfortably. That's one thing about me. I don't give a. I will not carry food, and I'll keep my sleeping setup nice and cozy, because that's how. But
how dare you?
How dare I? How dare I? Sacrilege! But this right here, this changed my life, because I don't know if it might have been you actually who like introduced me to like the way of the lacrosse ball, and like how
it wasn't the lacrosse ball. I tend to go with things that are more gentle with the body and not so hard. Yeah, so I would go more tennis ball.
So it wasn't you, but some sadist
not for the lacrosse ball. Yeah,
some sadist out there introduced me to the lacrosse ball. And like, by the way, myofascial release, like we all know about like the foam rollers, and I've actually got my big full length foam roller here, like the one that you recommended.
Perfect.
Which is, I mean, when you're at home, like, use this sucker. And I feel like we just do a whole other episode on just using a foam roller.
We could do honestly. A few. I've got a lot of stuff for it.
But
it's seemingly never ending.
But But like when we're out on the trail and all we've got is this doohickey right here. I think a lot of the people who are going to listen to this, if they're already hikers, they probably have some experience with myofascial release. They understand they probably understand how to like lay on the ball or the roller to like hit the fascia in the first place. What I want to hear from you is what do you like are general guidelines. Like one thing I know about myofascial release is like you never want to roll across a bone, right? Like you want to like keep it on like the soft tissue basically. So like if you're rolling on your spine, you don't want to like roll right on your vertebrae or whatever. Is that or am I wrong on that one?
No, that's a good guideline. But I would also
back to it's just you and me here, so because we can get that.
Yeah. Oh, I got you. Perfect.
So, what are your thoughts on how to roll yourself out, especially if all you're using is a ball? Like, what are some good like cues or guidelines to keep in mind for this? Or if this is too vague, tell me it's too vague, and we'll do a whole separate lacrosse ball episode.
Maybe we could do that too, but I think for a really good intro, let's just back up real quick because a lot of people maybe are hearing myofascial release and going, oh yeah, that's just something that I hear. But myo means muscle, like muscle fiber, and fascia or fascial is the connective tissue surrounding it. Like when you go to peel away skin from chicken breast, that white film, it's that. But every individual muscle fiber is wrapped in its own jacket of fascia, and then the next one, and surrounding bundles. And then as that fascia comes out the ends of the muscle, it all comes together to become the tendon. And then the tendon isn't grabbing onto the bone, it's grabbing onto the fascia that covers the bone, the periosteum? Yeah, periosteum.
Say so, man.
Yeah, sure. I said it. So, but
the periclosteum.
My point is, fascia is everything. When we say myofascial, we're kind of talking specifically about that. But I tend to not, deal with these things individually when I'm working on people. But just to give a quick little primer, but. The other thing that I would say, much like healing takes place in the presence of movement, he who treats the site of pain is lost. He or she or they. So if you're only taking your lacrosse ball and trying to roll out that spot that hurts, you might be missing the point. Okay. And a really simple way of thinking about this is some people will get piriformis syndrome or pseudosciatica. These are the same thing. They'll feel pain going down their hamstring and it's kind of burning, and maybe they're rolling out their hamstring. They're trying to get rid of that burning, but missing the piriformis, or they're feeling it right in the piriformis and they start rolling over that sucker with their lacrosse ball, beating the crap out of it, and then they get up and now they do have pseudosciatica. They've irritated something that's already irritated. So what I would say is if you feel pain in an area, try rolling out the opposite side. Try rolling out the back versus the front, or try double checking the left side versus the right where you're feeling it. Just try and open your mind to the idea that maybe it's not coming from just where you're noticing the pain. Pain is a signal that something's going on, but it's also dumb in that it's a reflex or it's a response to something, but it can't guide you perfectly. Like I said earlier, I have people who are like, oh, I've got a temple headache right here, but I've been working on my temples and it's only getting worse. I'm like, well, no, you had a headache from your shoulders and now your temple muscles are also irritated now. So I'll leave their temples alone, work on some trigger points here in the neck, get rid of that headache, and now only their temples are irritated.
Well, what about like moving away from like, yes, I mean, and by the way, like, let's just put a disclaimer on this. Like, if I'm not going to say that anything I'm saying or anything you're saying is like advice that somebody who should actually take, if you're experiencing pain, like go see a medical professional. Like, this is just a entertainment only podcast. But what I would say, like, what about like using things like the ball or rollers in sort of your everyday life, not so much to treat pain, but just as like almost like as part of your stretching routine, where it's like, I get done stretching my calves, I put the ball under my calf and I roll it around for a while just to try and find the tight spots and find the knots, almost like a self massage.
Right. And I think one of the things that I would also say, that's great. And I use the foam roller daily. It doesn't get put away anymore. We used to keep it in the closet, not anymore.
Yeah, no, me neither. Mine's like I use my foam roller more than I use my television.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I'll go with that. So one of the things that I also have to get people to stop thinking is no pain, no gain.
Right.
That's an old adage. We can let go of that. It doesn't need to be that. I think I told you about the cliche conversation that I have with people where I will say, do you have a foam roller? Yes. Is it short? Yes. Is it the black, really hard one? Yes. Was it sold to you by a personality personal trainer? Yes.
I mean, like this,
is it
this
in the
guy right here
collecting dust? That exact foam roller. And I've
Amazon, baby.
Yeah, no. And do you use it though?
Yeah, I prop open a door with it downstairs. It's used a lot for that purpose.
So I'm glad that you have the other foam roller. That black one, you can get rid of it. You can, unless you're using it for the door.
Get rid of it.
How dare I? And I've had to, it's so funny how gentle I have to be with the type A personality personal trainers who I meet. And I start asking them about these things. Like, oh yeah, I've been selling them for years. They're great. And I'm like, I see maybe not your people, but a lot of people. And I ask them if they're using the foam roller and they say no. And I'm like, do you tell your personal trainer you're using them? And they say, yeah. I'm like, don't worry, I won't tell on you. They go, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But I've had that conversation so many times. It feels scripted. I'm not reading off of a script, I promise. It's just in my head all the time. I'm probably having dreams where I'm trying to convince people to just buy the long foam roller. But I also say, like, use the long foam roller because we're not necessarily trying to hurt you in those times. Like definitely if you find a tight spot, roll back and forth over it, but then get the whole quad.
Get the whole, yeah, and that's a big deal.
Guys, don't roll both your quads at the same time, okay? I used to teach a foam roller class, and I had one overzealous guy who just like went wham right up the top and just punched himself right in the crotch with the foam roller.
No.
I was like, one quad at a time at the top. Ladies, do whatever you want.
You bring up a good point.
So there's another disclaimer.
Yeah, right. You bring up a good point, which is the idea of like treating this, yes, balls is the point. But no, you bring up the point of working on both. It doesn't matter. Okay, my right leg is like a little stiff. If I roll myself out, I'm going to roll out both sides. Like you don't both just do one thing. In fact, the way I learned it, and I'm sad to find out now that you teach a class on this. I wish I had taken it, but when I do any kind of myofascial release, it's not like I do one part of my body. Like I literally start with the bottoms of my feet, and I do the thing that everybody knows about, where you stand on the ball and you roll it around. You find and I work my way up from there. So it's like I will do calves next. I will do the outside of my tibia there, where that little meaty spot is, and then of course working up from there, I work on my hamstrings, do the glutes, get into the do a quad roll out, and after all of that, groin, after I get done with all of that, then I will roll on my back. Like people who just flop down onto the thing and start rolling their back, I always feel like it's like they've missed the point. It's like it's not really just supposed to be something you roll your back on.
The short foam roller was made because people thought that it was to roll out the side of the leg, the IT band, and to roll up and down the back. And they think that's what the foam roller is for. Why have a long foam roller? But if I'm at my mid quad, I like to roll both at the same time. And then I'll turn to roll out my upper quad and get into the upper hip, right at that hip flexor attachment, and then I'll get to the other side as well. But also with the long one, you can lay on it with your head at one end and your sacrum at the other, so it's running along your spine. You can do chest opening stretches. You can do shoulder movement just to open that up. If your legs are out and you're just using your heels on the floor to balance on the foam roller, now you're engaging your posterior chain muscles in a way that's more balance based versus strength based of hiking. So you're kind of training in some extra coordination as well. Yeah. And these are all really great things. And as you're engaging, as your heel is on the floor and your sacrum is up above, as long as you're able to contract the core muscles and try and flatten out your lumbar spine, well, now you're going into what we're hoping to do is get you into actual hip extension. For some people, for the first time all day, you know. So opening up.
Now, what is hip extension? That's when your hip is tilted.
Is going back. So
okay.
So, as a for instance, the way that woman was showing the hamstring stretch and she was leaning forward. Well, both hips are in flexion at that point. One is in more or in greater hip flexion. But if she were to
go back here,
stand tall. If she were to stand tall, put maybe her hands on her hips and lift the heart and maybe have the head back and press the pelvis forward, now she's trying to achieve hip extension while standing. So if you're laying on the foam roller, your spine is elevated and your feet are below the plane of the pelvis, because they're on the floor, we're trying to get into hip extension.
And that's like when you're tucking your tailbone while you're on the foam
precisely. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Just slightly there. But as you're in that position and you're engaging the hip extensors, we're trying to get something to happen in the hip flexors to try and reduce that muscle tone. And that's the theory of co-contraction. You contract one muscle, the muscle on the opposite side gets the reflexive signal, not to elongate, muscles only go one direction, but we can at least decrease the amount of tone in that muscle. Okay. If we're defining tone is just the amount of residual contraction left in the muscle when it's at rest. So hypertonic muscle is like the guys like this. Hypotonic is maybe this person. You know, it's a theory because, you know, people will still have like contractures from cerebral palsy or strokes. And if they go to engage the opposing muscle group, it doesn't have any effect on the muscle tone of the contractured area. That was quite the aside. That there's no quiz. Tell your people there's no quiz.
There's no quiz. I promise. Listen, you tell them. No You're quiz. This is the broadcast. So you. Well, Wade, right. I think we're gonna have to cut it off here.
With you. Yes.
This is the longest episode I've ever recorded. So congrats.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we could do much more.
Man,
of this,
no, like this is amazing.
Telling people how I got into this.
Honestly, yeah, like this could very easily just be like part one of many. But I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for joining me today and sharing some of your extensive, brilliant knowledge. This is something like, look, behind food and how hard the trail was, like things that ache or things that are like need to be worked on in your body is like the third favorite thing for most hikers to talk about. So I'm hoping that people out there can glean some entertainment and perhaps some information from this. And you've been just an absolute well of knowledge here. And I just wanted to thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of other questions and answers have popped into my head, so I'll keep thinking about this. Can I really quick show a couple books?
Yeah, please.
Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. And you don't have me in reverse, so you can see. Can you see that?
Yeah, the trail guide. A trail guide to the body.
Is it backwards?
Oh. No, it's not backwards.
Oh, okay, you can see. Okay, just making sure. Trail Guide to the Body. I have the revised 5th edition. They've come a few editions since then. Anatomy of Movement.
Oh, yeah.
This is another really great one that I teach from. And depending, some people, I always assume that people will go full nerd. Muscles, Testing, and Function. You see that okay?
Okay, yeah.
And this one, it's great because there's like postural assessment photos in here that look like they were taken in the 60s. And the doctor, I forget what his name is. Anyway, it's great, and it'll talk about all the nerves and all the different ways to test muscles. But in my career, these 3 books have been kind of huge in not only my practice, but in my teaching. And as my reference, I sleep with them right next to my bed. Some of them for many years, decades, actually.
I'm sure that I'm personally interested in them. I'm sure at least somebody's going to get something out. So let's include links to those in the description of this when we publish it, and hopefully people can gain some more knowledge on their own.
If you want to learn a little bit more, I think that any one of them. Some of them are pretty expensive, textbook price books, but you're kind of done. You'll have all the answers as to what muscle is that, and where do I find it, and how do I test it. That between these 3, you'll be able to figure that out, and maybe get a medical dictionary too.
Heck yeah!
Anyway,
all right. Well, Wade, we'll end the interview here. I appreciate your time, and let's keep talking, and maybe we'll come back and do a part 2.
Absolutely. All right, Eric.
All right, brother. All right. Well. Okay, so that's talk about a wealth of information. A big thank you going out to Wade for coming on and sharing his knowledge with us. I hope you found this stuff entertaining and insightful, and if you've gained some knowledge from it, that's amazing. Next week, there will be another episode. At this point, I can't tell you what it's going to be about. I have no idea myself. So we're within 4 weeks now of my start date of April 10th. Things are getting real. I put in notice at my wonderful welding job last week, so I'm down to my last couple weeks working there, and full-blown physical therapy, and then with all the training and everything. It's coming up. It's going to be here before you know it. So we'll see what topics we cover next week. But I hope you all enjoyed the podcast, and I look forward to talking more with you and sharing this journey with you. We'll see you guys next week. All right. Again, I'm Eric Wesh, and thanks for stopping by Younger Man's Game.